I'm back in Plenary Session HQ with another video, and this is a spin-off of something I wrote called Forget About Mentors, Sponsors, and Coaches, What Can You Do For You? That was the theme of my article. It was quite simple, really. I acknowledge and appreciate that there are many people out there who wish they had a suitable mentor, sponsor, or coach, but many of us are out of luck. There's not a mentor tree, and they're not dropping apples in our lap, and so we have to fend for ourselves. And so I wrote this column, and it sought to give people advice of what should you do for you if that's really all you have. And to be honest, even if you have a mentor or sponsor or coach, I think this column is incredibly helpful. I think it's about self-improvement, how to be a better version of yourself. So that was why I wrote it. I got a number of comments. The vast majority, of course, were positive, but it's the negative ones that stick in your craw. And some of the negative comments were really wondering why should, I do anything on my own. And the answer is, I guess I strongly believe that if you want to be good at whatever you want to do, and the article was very agnostic about what you want to do, that was the first goal, to figure out what that is for you, but you do have some duty to try to do that as well as you can possibly do that, and that means buckling down and doing some hard work and getting better at it. And I don't apologize for that. I think I doubled down on that, and I would encourage more and more people to value that, to have that ethic. Now, after I wrote that column, I got a very interesting comment from Dr. Kulkarni, who is an infectious disease doctor, and a doctor that's worth your time on Twitter. You should follow him. He asked me the following, which I thought it would be much better to just talk about extemporaneously. That's why I'm doing this video. So here's his question. Slightly unrelated, but important. What is your advice to people about developing skills in writing? There's often a version of, I like clinical care and or education, but I really don't like writing, excluding research because you pretty much have to write. So how do you, the thread breaks up, but he basically says, what is your advice to improve upon writing, and how do you make that a component of your work? So it's a great question. And I have some thoughts. So first I will just say that I think one of the themes of my article was that what you ought to do is something that I don't prescribe, I don't tell you, you tell me, you tell yourself. And that could easily be something that does not require or entail writing. I think clinical care, you do have to do documentation. Oh, don't we all know that? But you don't have to be a gifted and consummate writer to simply carry out excellent clinical care. But a lot of things you do need to be a good writer. I would say probably education, whether you like it or not, it would help to be a good writer. Even if all you're writing are tutorials or educational modules for your local institution, clarity of writing would help you there. I think when it comes to research and thinking about research or participating in public discourse on science and medical topics, writing is, as Dr. Kulkarni notes, probably the most important thing that you could be better at. Now, I actually don't think that there are any writing exercises you could do. I think good writing is really good thinking. And what do I mean by that? When you observe something that resonates within you, be it troubles you, be it something that delights you, whatever emotion it brings out in you, and you feel like you want to jump in there and comment about it. I guess I'll give one example. I recently read a New York Times article that said Anthony Fauci had changed what he believed the herd immunity threshold is after reading public opinion polls as to what percent of people would be willing to be vaccinated. And so he gradually increased his estimate, or his statement of what the estimates are consistent with, in response to that information. And that resonated a strong response from me. I had strong feelings about it instantly, and it took me a while to process and articulate why I had such strong feelings about it. And so what I mean is, I ended up writing a piece on it, and I think it's not up for me, but it's up to others to decide whether or not they think it's well written or not. But my process of writing the piece is first to start with that emotion that now there are at least two instances where Anthony Fauci, a gentleman who I have a great deal of respect and admiration for, a giant of medicine, but he has on two instances in recent past played how he's going to speak about scientific facts with an eye towards what people will do if they hear and know those facts. And he may, to some degree, have altered what he was saying based on getting you, the public, to have a different behavioral response. And my reaction is I don't like that. I don't think that's the role of scientists. I don't think it's the role of public health experts. But then I had to sit with that. I sat with it for a couple days, thought about it here or there in the course of my day. And I tried to articulate to myself why I had that feeling. And ultimately, I realized it really boiled down to 4 different factors. One, I struggled with just the practical aspect of it. In this modern world, when it comes to herd immunity models, there is no gap between what Fauci is privy to and what all of us are privy to. We all have access to pretty much the same published herd immunity models. We may have 1 or 2 that we don't, but we have many other models. The other example I used were some of his comments on masks, and I urge you to read the article because I was very careful to transcribe about a minute and a half of interview. I wanted to get it precisely right, what he said and what he didn't say, which has been misconstrued in both ways on the internet, and so I did. But it was clear that some of his comments in early March were not what they would be in terms of informing the public. They were intended to get the public to not have a run on masks, and that may have later been a deep source of mistrust and a problem. So my first point was that all the data on masks, of course, is available to everybody, and so that's the first point. That the information gap that may have once been present when experts were communicating to the public, that is gone in the information age. My next point I realized was it's a dangerous game to play. Scientists have no particular or special expertise in how people respond to different information. If we did, we would all have perfect personal and professional lives and relationships with everybody because we would know just how to phrase it to them so that they would have the reaction that we so desire. But when I look around, I see scientists are struggling with those things just like everyone else. So they have no special knowledge of predicting what you will do when I tell you X versus Y. So it's a dangerous game. Very dangerous to give people information thinking it will get them to do X, Y, or Z when you have no training in that, and you may be wrong. The third point I came up with in my mind is that the loss of trust issue. You can play this game once, you can play it twice, but you sure as shit ain't playing it 3 times with me. You can't play it 3 times with me because I won't trust you, and everything you tell me thereafter I will process through my reverse translator, and I will ask, okay, maybe he or she believes this, but maybe they're saying this because they want me to do something. And if that were their intent, what would they want me to do? And what would the truth be that they're spinning to get me to do X, Y, or Z? And so I will play this mental game all day. I'll drive myself crazy. But that really means I just don't trust you anymore. And it's a non-starter. And so I worry that in this particular situation, that a new spokesperson is needed, as I write in the article. And number 4, this is the biggest I think the root of my disagreement with this is that this distortion further steals power from people and concentrates it in the hands of scientists. And that is not our role in society. Science is the best thing people have ever done. It is a very good way of getting answers to a certain class of questions that depend on inductive reasoning and on experimentation and falsification. Not all questions, not theological questions, not questions of morality, but questions of how things work, of causality. It's a tremendous tool for that class of questions. But making policy and political decisions has one more step. It has the step of what people value, what people are willing to trade off, what people are willing to sacrifice. And scientists have no special insight, no special power, no special ability to tell you what the answer to those questions are. In fact, we have a voice like anyone else. We are citizens. But we should have no greater voice than people who don't have training in science. And I worry that as scientists manipulate the facts that they're telling you in order to get you to do X, Y, or Z, they are really robbing you of your autonomy, your political power, and they are taking questions of politics and turning them into scientific questions. And it is a tyranny of sorts, a tyranny of scientists. And these were the 4 reasons, and so I ended up writing my piece. But the point of this discussion is the point about writing, which is before I even put pen to paper, or in this case, used a lousy keyboard on an old version of a Mac, I had already articulated, I think, 4 distinct, non-overlapping reasons why this troubled me, and I had reasons for those 4 reasons, and then I turned to the task of writing. I believe that the principal error people make in writing is that they themselves have not in their own mind articulated what those reasons are, why they're distinct, why they're not overlapping. Bad writing so often has the same reason as 1 in 3. They're the same thing, you're just saying it again, and the audience will get fatigued and they can tell you're being redundant. And that really reflects, I don't want to say laziness, it's not laziness, but it is not having spent enough time thinking about the topic. And so Hemingway famously said, when it comes to good writing, long periods of thinking, short periods of writing. And that is indeed, I think, the answer. That if we want to improve in how we craft arguments, we have to improve in how we think. And I see errors of thinking all the time, especially because I'm on Twitter. But just the classic errors are not really reading what people said, not really checking source material to say that that's what they said, when you argue against them, to argue against a position that they didn't hold, and to provide arguments that are messy, sloppy, overlapping, non-distinct. These all lead to weak writing. And then I think the other thing is, it's kind of hard to say, is some people feel obliged to comment when they really don't have that strong intuition and they don't have those ideas. And if you don't have those ideas and you don't have the intuition, the best thing is to not weigh in on that debate and save it for the things that strike a bell inside you. So again, this is the opposite of good writing, because this is extemporaneous speaking. But I thought it was a very interesting question. I think the gentleman is right, Dr. Kulkarni. I think he's right that writing, for better or worse, is a vehicle to communicate one's ideas in the modern world. And if one were to refine any skill, it ought to be in that. And if one really wants to do that, one would have to refine thinking, because thinking comes before writing. So those are just my 2 cents.